Today is a special day as Gen Z Talks kicks off its events journey, bringing together the young, fresh, creative minds of Gen Z, along with the experienced professionals. And I would like to give a warm welcome to everyone who's joining us today. And I hope you enjoy what we've got coming up. Gen Z Talks was launched last year at the height of the pandemic, with the aim to give young people a voice in the world of work. We wanted to have young people share their experiences, perspectives, ideas and opportunities with other young people around the world. In addition, we want the talks to reverse mentor and give experienced professionals and companies some new innovative ways of doing things to help build a better working world. More recently, we've been interviewing young people and experienced professionals on a work-related topic to share their perspectives and to unite the generations through their strengths, through their understanding of each other, and to create a community around this. Lots of young people still working from home without the access to experienced professionals, and there being plenty who are struggling for work experiences, and are unable to build up the experience needed for their professional growth. And then we have experienced professionals who are struggling with adapting to the new digital side of things, to learning new things quickly, to the tech skills required in the new world of work, and to the creativity to evolve. What we want to do at Gen Z Talks is to now bring this into a community where we want to bring together Gen Z with other generations to create a supportive community, to share strengths, to encourage authentic networking for people to build meaningful relationships. We want to share opportunities, skills, ideas, which individuals and companies can use to help them grow and to help create a more positive future. So we're going to be putting events on a regular basis, focused around talks from Gen Z and an experienced professional, as well as networking in between. And we hope that you enjoy today, but also follow our journey by joining our events going forward.
My name is Flynn Blackie. I'm an 18-year-old high school dropout, acclaimed psychological marketing pioneer, and a finalist for 2021's Young British Entrepreneur of the Year.
Excellent. Who was that handsome fella? Let's get him back on the screen. Now, I want to wish a huge thanks to Dan and the Gen Z Talks team for putting this together. It's a privilege to be the first speaker on something I know they've worked so hard on, and I really appreciate you for taking the time to come and watch it today. Now, picture this, if you will. You're sitting in your maths classroom trying to find X where Y equals God knows what, and all you can think about is this dream you have in your head. A dream which, for me, was building a team of geniuses, a world-renowned company, and loving every minute of it. Maybe you dream or dreamt of being an actor, an actress, an artist, or maybe you dreamt of building a world-renowned company too. Now, whilst I may not have yet known the value of X, there were two things I did know. I knew that one, I didn't want to go to university. And I knew that two, that after dabbling in web design for some time, I wanted to do something in the digital marketing space. So what do? Do you wait out 2 more years learning about things you will never use the moment you leave the exam hall? Or do you quit school and start working towards your dream life? I was in this exact dilemma 2 years ago, and fast forward to now, I'm building my global marketing business, building an incredible team of some of the smartest minds in their niche. I'm a finalist for Young British Entrepreneur of the Year, and I have the pleasure of speaking to you today. So I'm sure you can guess what decision I made, but what changed? What changed in that 2-year time frame that enabled me to transition from school kid swinging in his chair to the Gen Z deemed by Entrepreneur's Handbook as the next Mark Zuckerberg without the ugly ego that you're hopefully listening to right now? Well, it could be, landing some massive multi-million-pound companies as clients, could be getting featured in press, and it could be receiving guidance from some really intelligent and inspiring people. But what was it that enabled all of that? If I had to pick one crucial business skill that helped me grow as an entrepreneur despite starting and still being at a very young age, I would choose networking. If you want to truly build great things in life, you can't do it alone. You need people who can help you whilst you help them, be it clients, partners, mentors, investors, or even just successful friends. Business is not an exact science where there are step-by-step guides. You need all the advice you can get from people who've been there, done that, their insights, their past mistakes, and their knowledge. Books are great, but they can only take you so far. Imagine you had direct access to the people you needed instead. Think about it, right? You see a post by a friend who's struggling with a problem, and you know Mr. John Smith who can solve it for them. Who are you going to recommend? Mr. Smith, right? So let's say you introduce yourself and become Mr. Smith to 100 influential people. If each of them knows another 100 influential people, you've just become 2 steps away from 10,000 potentially life-changing people. Imagine where that can take you. If you've truly mastered the skill of networking, then all of your problems can be solved at your fingertips. Do you want more clients? Pull out your phone, go to your contacts, look for a good fit, reach out, boom. Need an investor? Well, maybe you don't know one, but I'll bet you have someone on your network who does, or maybe someone who wants to become an investor. Want to jump on a podcast? Find a host, reach out, just type and hit send. So with all of this power that can be found in networking, just a click away, why are there so many people that aren't taking advantage of it? Well, I can't speak for everyone here, but in Gen Z, I think that there's one real standout problem that far too many of us are letting get in the way of building these incredible relationships. Fear. It's this fear of reaching out, this anxiety, this fear of embarrassment, of rejection that's holding back so many young people from sending a simple message. I know I certainly experienced this. You know, there've been so many times where I've been so nervous to send, had my finger just hovering over the button, almost as if there was some barrier between it and the send button. And it wasn't until I started asking this really quite simple and really quite obvious question to myself that I use now whenever I feel like that, and I'm able to press send every single time. You know what that question is? What's the worst that can happen here versus what's the best that can happen here? Usually, the absolute worst that could happen is you get ghosted. Though I have heard of people who are scared to network because they're scared of what their friends might think. To which I say, aside from find new friends who you don't need to be scared of aiming to succeed around, aside from that, I'd say, who the hell are you reaching out to that is not going to reply to you, who I assume saying something pretty pleasant, something pretty nice, and instead will find your friend, find your message, and show it to them? Come on, ridiculous, right? But it's this fear-driven illusion that we create in our minds to avoid reaching out and sending messages. This is exactly when you need to stop and look at what the best thing that can happen is, right? So you might reach out to a C-suite executive in a company you dream of working at, and they say, hey, actually, I could really do with some help. Why don't you come help me out with some stuff? You get to know the team, you'll be able to shadow me and see what I do. You know, maybe if it goes well, I could put you forward for a position. Or maybe you reach out to an author simply to tell her how much you loved her book. She replies, what's your address? Sends you a copy with her signature. Or maybe you just reach out to someone whose values really resonate with you, and you end up finding yourself a friend for life and maybe even a best man for your wedding. The bottom line is that networking has so much more upside than it does downside, right? As an activity that costs pretty much nothing other than time, it drastically outweighs the downside of maybe getting ignored. I mean, just recently, I reached out to a fantastic writer on Medium. His name is Ash Jerberg. I shared my story with him, and I asked if he wanted to write about me. 1 week after that, just 1 week, he released an article that has gone on to become one of the most popular that publication has ever had, and it's Ash himself's #1 most popular article ever. Not only that, it led to a couple new clients for my agency, a bunch of new amazing connections on LinkedIn. So think about that for a second. The worst thing that could have happened, and by the way has, when reaching out to other writers in the hopes of getting my story shared, is that I get ignored. Compare that to what really happened from literally spending 15 minutes reaching out to someone whose work that I really admired, a viral article, more connections, more followers, and a few new clients. So funny, that article was actually about the email I sent them. Its title is "A 17-Year-Old Crafted the Best Marketing Email I've Read." Check it out if you get a chance. It breaks down in real granular detail every paragraph of this cold networking email I sent him and why the email is so effective, and obviously why he wrote about me as a result of it. But at the bottom, he leaves a line far more important than every single symphony of words in my email. See, I could list hundreds, maybe thousands of methods you can use for reaching out to people, making connections, building your network. But the bottom line is that it's not one size fits all, right? There's no one remedy guaranteed to get your response every time. No, the most important sentence in that article is not one from my email script. It's the line he adds in the conclusion. The best email in the world won't do anything if it is left in your drafts folder. So instead of spending your time chasing this golden strategy, wasting time trying to engineer this incredible script, spend your time on finding people you actually want to connect with, learning what they're actually interested in, how you can add value to them, and most importantly, spend your time getting in touch with them, not thinking about it, not planning on doing it. Pick up your phone, pick up your keyboard, and send the message.
Great talk, Flynn. Thank you so much for sharing that with us today. It's incredibly well-delivered talk with loads of brilliant top points. As someone else who's run away and gone against the norm education, it's inspiring to hear how far hard work and developing the skill that is networking can take you. So we're going to bring Flynn back later for a Q&A. But next up, we are going to listen to an experienced professional's perspective on this topic. Katrina Sargent is well known in the networking and businessing world, and in 2012, she co-funded Business Buzz, which has networking communities across the south of England. Before Katrina comes to the stage, we're going to watch a short video to learn more about who she is and her career journey so far.
Hi, my name's Katrina Sargent, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here today and be invited along to this discussion on what the future of networking looks like. I am the co-founder of award-winning Business Buzz, which is a networking events company which was established back in 2012. I'm passionate about networking. I do it everywhere, from weddings to the checkout to business events, and the majority of my business has come through networking. It would be great to hear your thoughts on what you think networking is going to look like in the future too. So I can't wait to share this time with you. Hi everybody. Wow, I've got to follow that Flynn Blackie. He was amazing, wasn't he? And you know what? He absolutely speaks to my heart. As I explained in my video, my name is Katrina Sargent. I run a business networking events company, but networking is so much more than just events. You can do it absolutely everywhere. And over the last 18 months, it's proved to me that the world is much bigger than I could have ever imagined running my own little events company in town centres in the southeast of England. And I'm really interested to see what the future holds for us all as we come out the pandemic and the restrictions that we've been under for such a long time, and find out how we're all going to adapt to this new world. I've always networked, you know, I'm just a naturally nosy person. There are many benefits to having conversations with people. And as Flynn pointed out, that, you know what's the worst that can happen? I've just recently started hearing that term ghosted, but I realise that I've been ghosted more times than I care to remember online. But as Flynn explains, you know, it is so good when those conversations pay off. For me, in terms of what business networking looks like in the future, this online community that Dan has created and that is growing as well is going to be vital for people to continue to make connections wider than, you know, their local community. But it all comes down to relationships and building those important relationships that will help you get further in whatever you choose to do. I've been in sales all my life. I started out when I left school. I didn't go to college. I went straight into work, working in a stationery company. And I had conversations with people that, you know, I would never have dreamed of having, just taking their stationery orders at first. But from that, I got another job and I started my career in doing much better things than I ever dreamed of, and that perhaps I could have done even if I'd have gone to college, because I would have probably just done a secretarial course, because that's what all was available back in the days when I was at school. My relationships with businesses, the passion that come out of that was because my granddad was an entrepreneur. He ran his own printing company, and you know, in the 70s and 80s, he was really, really successful. But in the 90s, when home printing came out and the technology was being upgraded, unfortunately, my granddad's business didn't survive. And I think that that was because he didn't have his finger on the pulse. We now have the technology to find everything at our fingertips, which is absolutely amazing. And we can have conversations with people. Today, I've just been on that speed networking, and I've met a guy called Ari from Australia. Now, that wouldn't have happened, you know, 2 years ago. I wouldn't have even gone on camera 2 years ago to have conversations with people. And I think that people's attitudes are changing, and it's really, really important that we embrace it. Communication is changing. You know, the way that we hardly communicate on emails anymore. I get much more response from quick messages on LinkedIn, little videos and little voice messages that people send me. Is much more engaging than a boring email. And I think that that's all building your network. The only thing that I would say, and a top tip that I would share with you about building a network, whether you do it in a structured environment like a business event, or if you do it, you know, sporadically, ad hoc, or, you know, whatever, is actually make sure that you reach out to people and you explain the reasons why you want to connect with them and talk to them. There's no point in pressing a button on LinkedIn and just getting sending a connection request, because all you're doing is building a glorified directory. You know, it's more important that you start having the conversations and tell people why you want to connect with them, because they're more likely to engage to a message than they would just a random connection request. And all of that stuff is free and at your fingertips. You know, I'm really inspired by the people I've already met today, because, you know, you guys are the future and you're going to shape what networking looks like, you know, now. And as the technology improves even more, I'm sure we'll be walking around virtual rooms and things. So I'm really keen to hear what you think about it. But for my business, we're starting to go back to face to face. There has been a real need to get back to that human connection of actually being in a room and feeling the energy of people. So I'm really excited that we're actually allowed to do that again, because we have all really missed it. But long term, I think it's going to be a bit of a hybrid of the two. You know, today I am networking in my slippers, and that's the great thing because I can stand here and not feel uncomfortable, and just really enjoy being with people and meeting new people and having lots of conversations and hopefully making the connections after the event. And I would say that that's also very important for you guys as well, is that today has been brilliant, but it's what you do with the connections that you make today and where you take them that might hold future for you. So thank you so much for listening to me today. I'm here to answer any questions. Yeah, it's been amazing so far, and I hope you've all enjoyed it too.
Hiya. So yeah, two brilliant talks with two unique perspectives. Both of you brought up brilliant points. I think a point that you, Flynn, brought up, the fear of embarrassment. And I was watching a business podcast the other day, I can't remember who by, but they brought up the fear of embarrassment being the biggest hurdle for new businesses and entrepreneurs. And I think especially as Gen Z, when you're less experienced with networking and haven't developed that thick shell yet, rejection can be a massive hurdle. And Katrina, you mentioned about the opportunities and potential that technology has brought. And technology is always changing. New apps keep popping up, and the way people communicate changes, it seems to me, almost every month. So it's important to be flexible around that. And some great advice as well about opening lines to spark conversation, as well as the importance of carrying on that conversation afterwards. So what did you two think of each other's talks? If we start with maybe Katrina?
well, Flynn blew me away from the minute I met him anyway. I've been inspired about him ever since, and I keep talking about him to everybody. Oh my God, you must think this guy is amazing. You know, I wish I was as confident as you at your age, and I don't mean to sound patronising, but I am nearly 50, so I think I'm allowed. But yeah, I see great things for you, and I just, everything that you said in your talk actually just fills my heart with joy, because, you know, the world's going to be amazing, you know, if we can encourage more people to take that fear and just do it anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree with you there. I think I'm also so impressed with how charismatic and confident and well-spoken your points are. Yeah, it was amazing, Flynn. What did you think of Katrina's talk?
I'm just glad Katrina gave some tips. I was nervous after I read mine out that I hadn't given any value in terms of what you can actually do to reach out. But I just know that for me, a couple of years ago, I gave the talk I wanted to hear 2 years ago, if that makes sense. What would have, you know, made myself reach out? And I know for a lot of Gen Z people, and talking about that podcast you were referring to, Lizzie, it's clear that it's a common theme everywhere, that people just have that fear that holds them back. But
Could I just interrupt you there? Sorry, it's not a Gen Z exclusivity thing here. Even us big grown-up old people have that fear too. It's a fear of rejection. Everybody has it, you know.
Yeah. Well,
Absolutely.
that was both of you. That was brilliant talks. Both of you had some amazing things to say. I wrote some notes down from both of you. So now we're going to go to public audience questions. So if anyone has any questions, if you just pop them in the chat box. Oh, we've got one here. So how do you connect with new people with a view to make new clients without being too salesy? That's a very good question.
From my perspective, I would say don't try and sell anything when you first connect. So if you want a new client out of a connection, make them a connection first, build the relationship, and then have a conversation with them without any intention, see what comes out the back of that. But if you don't want to sound salesy, don't sell anything to begin with. Wait till you've built the relationship.
Yeah, I would agree. For me, selling is a big no-no. Networking isn't about getting a sale. It's about building relationships. And you just never know who's going to know who. So, you know, it might not be that the person standing in front of you or that behind that computer screen is your ideal customer, but they will and most probably want to help you if you build that relationship and that trust with them.
So when you are opening up a conversation with a new person to try and connect and add them to your network, what would you do to try and spark a conversation if it's not to talk about what you're offering?
Do you want me to take this first?
I have an idea, but I'd like to hear yours first.
Oh, all right, I'll go first then. So I think if you do your research and look at the person's profile and find something that sparks the interest about them, people do like to talk about themselves first and foremost. Asking them about their business and how, you know, you can build a relationship with them is just how it's worked for me. Invite them along to events that you know you're going to be at. I think that's key, you know, a really good way of engaging with people with no sales intention, I suppose. Flynn?
Yeah, that's
kind of the lines that you were thinking of.
Exactly that. I was just going to say, don't talk about yourself if you don't know. Ask about them.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've got one from Matt. So what is the best thing that has come from a reach out that you've done?
You can go first, Flynn.
Well, that article I used in my talk as an example certainly brought a lot of connections. It brought some big clients for the company. So there's always that kind of snowball effect that can happen. Unexpected things just from having a conversation with someone that can happen afterwards. So that's probably what I would suggest is the best thing that's happened, is just, more clients, more connections, and you never know what one person can end up doing for you. and what you can do for them.
Yeah, I completely agree. I've got a great story actually. When I was running a networking membership organisation back in the mid-90s, there was a guy who was a window cleaner, and he ran ladless window cleaning, sort of like quite eco-friendly, very good. And the guy that sort of came up and started speaking to him dismissed him because he was a window cleaner and was like, well, you can't help me, so I'm not interested. During the event, we were talking about connections, and the guy actually put his hand up and said, I'm looking to connect with the marketing director of a pharmaceutical company. And the window cleaner put his hand up and said, my wife is the marketing director, not of that pharmaceutical company, but of another pharmaceutical company. Would that interest you? And the guy was just blown away. And that is a true story. And he made a really bad impression to the window cleaner because he just dismissed him. So, it's all about helping one another, because you just don't know how many people or who the people are that are standing behind them.
Okay, so any advice for the introverts to network?
Be yourself.
Be yourself.
Yeah, be authentic and be yourself. Don't try and be something that you're not. Obviously, being an extrovert myself, I have to find that I have to stand back sometimes and let people have that opportunity to speak. But we're all just people, we're all humans. And, just treat everybody with respect, go in with an open mind and just be honest and open, because you'll find that if you're your authentic self, then people will warm to you naturally, and your relationships will develop and grow.
Yeah, I have nothing to add to that.
Okay, so we have, how did you both avoid social comparison? Seeing people around you head to university, apprenticeships, things that appear stable.
I definitely don't hold anything against university, college, those options. I just knew that for me it wasn't what I wanted to do. I think they're actually in this country where you don't have to pay to go necessarily, and the only kind of costs that come attached are your accommodation, etc. It makes more sense if you don't know what you want to do to go into a degree and get something else behind you whilst you're still trying to figure stuff out. But seeing people, I mean, when I left, the people I was seeing were still just in high school anyway, so I wasn't seeing them going off to university, etc. I do now see that, and now I've had the chance to build up and make it work for myself. So it's, the comparison is more for me, I have that stability now, so it's harder to see it. But I knew that at the time people would go on to do it, and I knew that I was taking a risk. I just had a lot of determination in my head that I was going to make it work. So I don't think you can really avoid social comparison, but just not letting it be an obstacle to you is more what I would say.
Yeah.
I
completely agree with Flynn, actually. Sorry, Lizzie. I was just going to say that when I was at school, university wasn't achievable to people on low incomes. It just wasn't something that we were able to do. So I didn't really have that pressure or have to make that decision. But certainly, it's been amazing to watch my children, go through further education and seeing the things that they've achieved and experiences that I've never experienced, there is absolutely nothing wrong with further education, and I would definitely encourage people to do it if that's what they want to do, but it doesn't suit everybody. And I think the more honest we are about whether it suits us, and we're not just going with the flow because everybody else's expectations are that you do that, you have to be true to yourself. And I think that that's what Flynn has shown and demonstrated in his talk today.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think there's never, in my experience so far, there's always more than one way to get to a point. So I was originally doing teaching because I didn't want to do something creative, because I thought it was more secure. And eventually, if that's where your passion is, you'll find yourself back where you were supposed to be anyway. So yeah, I completely agree. When it comes to comparing yourself, that's something that I struggled with when I switched courses. But quite soon, if that's what you're passionate about, you find that you are on the right path for you, and you'll be more successful doing something that's your passion anyway. What was the turning point, that final straw that led you to finally saying, "Leave it, I'm going to do it"?
That's definitely one for you, Flynn.
Yeah, that's Flynn's question.
I guess I just visualized. As I said, I asked myself the question of what's the worst that can happen versus what's the best that can happen. And the first person that I reached out to that's like a notable story, or would be perhaps daunting, was when I just told Starling Bank, who was the first person that kind of featured me, gave me PR, publication, that kind of stuff. I just wrote a message to them, basically telling them my story and thanking them, because they were the only bank that took me on as someone who was 16 with a business, which was something that I actually struggled with. Like, I was trying to get, expenses and stuff. And for the first couple of months, I'm sticking things on my personal card. So hopefully the tax man doesn't come and investigate me for any of that. But yeah, just asking that question of what's the worst versus what's the best. And then realizing, well, Starling Bank aren't exactly going to embarrass me to anyone. I'd probably get a lawsuit out of that, be able to sue them. So just knowing that you don't really have anything to lose. And when you realize that there's nothing really to lose and so much to gain, it becomes pretty easy just to type something out, speak from your heart, from your mind, say what you want to say, and just hit send. That's the best thing I can say.
This is our last question. How do you approach the aspect of adding value effectively to ensure the benefits are mutual?
Great question, Dominic.
Yeah, it's a brilliant question.
Yeah, so for me, I just love helping people, and I do it for no other reason other than I get great joy from it. I think I describe it as a bit like, so if I was to remember your birthday, Flynn, and I sent you a birthday card and a lovely gift, and I said, happy birthday, it would also make you question, do you know when my birthday is? And you must remember it so that you can give back. And it's that whole giver's gain type thing. I don't do it for that reason, but I get great joy from connecting people. And when a connection works out, it's fantastic. I've got great stories that I could share. We haven't got time to today, but where I've made a connection and it's made a fundamental difference to somebody's life and business moving forward. And it was just because I saw an opportunity for someone and I introduced them. That's all I did. Now, that's made a massive difference to them. And since then, I've stayed engaged with them, and they I don't make them feel like they owe me something, but they feel like they do. So hopefully it will come back and help me, in the future. So yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, I would say
no hidden agenda.
Yeah, I would say the approach to adding value effectively to ensure the benefits are mutual. I would say it's very difficult for there to ever be a perfectly balanced, scale where you're both added the exact same amount, and trying to keep it like that. It just doesn't make sense. I would say to ensure that, you're always adding as much value as you can. So I would say always try and tip yourself higher than the other person in terms of what you're adding. And what might happen is, as Katrina said, is they then kind of feel like they need to continue to keep up with you. So I would say always just make sure you're adding more value than you're receiving or expecting. I would say never expect anything in return. Just give as much as you can.
Some great points again. I think I got to a point as well with networking where I was so nervous to try it. And actually, if I'd never tried it, I've done so much this year just through networking that I never would have done before. And that's not counting the amount of people that said no. But you don't remember those after a while. When you get all these success coming, you don't remember people that don't reply to you. And some great tips about remembering people's birthdays. See if you'll get something back. That's a good tip as well. So now we are moving on to, So thank you everyone for coming today to support and supporting our first of many events. We also want to say a big thank you to the event ambassadors and speakers who have put in considerable amounts of time into this event. We really appreciate your support, but the event isn't over yet. You will soon be taken back to the lounge where there's an open networking room allowing you to select different virtual tables. So jump onto the speed networking feature if you want to be randomly matched for more quickfire questions. Before you go, I want to let you know about our next event, which will take place on the 17th of November at 6 p.m. This will be our Gen Z Innovate and Motivate networking event. Of course, there will be more networking between Gen Z and other generations, so please be sure to join us. It's been a pleasure hosting you all today, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.